Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. In this episode, 1 Minute Before Death, also known as The Oval Portrait, directed by Rogelio A. Gonzalez in the year 1972, available on the Mill Creek Pure Terror box set, among other places. Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. I'm your host, Mila Sipka, and join me as I take you on a ride through the wild world of science fiction action horror, all from my personal DVD collection. Now, and by the way, I actually managed to find my old shades left in the garage. So, now this film was made in 1972, but the earliest premiere I can hear of is of the October 1976. It was a drive-in feature and was an American production, but had some Mexican film crew in it as well. Now, the film is part of the Mill Creek Pure Terror 50 film box set, which is my review copy, but there was also a double feature made by another company, which had a reasonably restored print of this along with the Telltale Heart, which is another Edgar Allan Poe story that was adapted without Roger Corman having anything to do with it, because Roger Corman was doing a lot of Edgar Allan Poe adaptations during the 60s. This was like in the 70s, and yeah. Anyway, this adaptation of one legendary horror writer Edgar Allan Poe's shortest ever stories, about 2 pages long if I remember correctly, is not what I would necessarily call a horror film per se, only a romantic drama with a supernatural twist to it. 1 Minute Before Death, also known under the title of The Oval Portrait, which was the title of the original Poe story, is essentially a sad tale set during the American Civil War about a Confederate soldier who, while wounded and hunted by an enemy, winds up sneaking to a mansion owned by a Union major whose repressive treatment of his only child Rebecca, who is a young woman in her 20s, causes her to latch onto the soldier and secretly take care of him, to the point that after a month of his recovering in the bedroom of the major's maid, the soldier, named Joseph Hudson, and Rebecca fall in love. The major doesn't know of Joseph's presence in the house, but once he is called to duty and leaves the house for a while, Rebecca and Joseph decide to get hitched. But before they can wed, in fact during the actual marriage ceremony, the Union soldiers hunting Joseph barge into the house and arrest him. Rebecca promises to wait for her hubby-to-be, but when the major returns home, he notices the oval-shaped portrait that Joseph painted for Rebecca and realizes that his only daughter had a lover. He kicks her out of the house before dying right afterwards from the shock. Rebecca also dies from the grief, right before Joseph is freed from custody once the war ends, and comes home to find his love dead. Once she is buried, Joseph decides to dig up Rebecca's coffin and hides it in his room in his house. But Rebecca is not gone for good. Her restless spirit haunts her portrait, and when a group of the Major's heirs come for the reading of the Major's will, the ghost possesses the body of one of the heirs for a short time. After giving her relatives a bit of a scare, Rebecca returns to the picture, and the maid, who is actually Joseph's mother, she gave him away after birth because she was unmarried at the time, but recognized him from the unique medallion she gave him at birth, having forged a will to have the house for themselves, finds out that the son has been sleeping with his bride's decaying corpse, and after realizing that Joseph won't ever snap out of his ever-maddening obsession with Rebecca, decides to reunite the pair by shooting Joseph dead. The film ends with Joseph and Rebecca, now ghosts, walking into the afterlife hand in hand. Now, to be honest, I found the film to be occasionally interesting. I do have an interest in military-themed movies, particular genre-related war movies, so watching a Civil War ghost story was definitely on the mind. But while the film isn't the best adaptation of an Edgar Allan Poe story by any measure, it's certainly not near the class of the ones that Roger Corman was making in the early 60s. This is like a decade later and not really having any talent for it. It's a reasonable one that doesn't get anywhere above strictly average. The acting is decent enough and the actors have a fair degree of room to shape their characters, but the whole thing is just not standing out in any real way. Given its inclusion in some American public domain labeled Mill Creek's massive box sets, in this case Pure Terror, and the Pure Terror set also has the Telltale Heart, and both films were actually released on a double bill from another company. I don't know which one, but you can look it up on the internet if you can. Now this might be useful for viewing on a slow day when you have nothing better to do or are confined to bed due to illness. Essentially nothing special. 1 Minute Before Death sits on a C, a 4 out of 10. It's average. Now for the gore. There's some melted crayons for stage blood used for Joseph's initial gunshot wound, and Rebecca's decayed corpse looks pretty gnarly, although the eyes are strangely intact. But it won't exactly upset those with weak stomachs. Now there's no nudity here, although right after Joseph gets shot dead, Rebecca, played by Mary Ayres, Comes down the stairs, her white gown clings to a ghostly body, showing her cleavage in the shape of a crotch for a brief moment. Nothing sensitive is shown. Now, the print on the Mill Creek Pure Terrace set was average, just as average as the film. It wasn't terrible, but given its clarity, it's not perfect, and I mean, it's the one that slightly cleaned the prints in the collection. So, if you want to look for a proper release, there was one double feature from I don't know which company did it, but just look it up on the internet if you can. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now I've got like 4 more reviews left to go before I do a year in review and the Spectrum 6, and that'll be it for the year. Hope you guys are staying safe. Keep watching, and that's it for this review.